We'll start in a minute's time. Hi, Aisha. Hi, Anshika.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Good
Hi,
evening.
sir, how are you?
Very fine, Aisha. So we again meet in the new year.
Happy New Year, sir.
Same to
Happy New
you.
Year to you.
Same to you. Same to you. Okay, let's kind of start. Let's kind of start because then we can finish in time. And we are starting with MDI 001, Unit 1, with the concepts of migration and diaspora. Let me share the PPT. Sharing is not turned on. Uh, can Sada sir, can you allow me to share?
So you can share now.
Okay, thank you. Just a minute. There is a particular way I have to do this. Yeah. Okay. So as we always Aisha would know this because she's attended some classes earlier, but whoever keeps joining, remember in this class you can stop me at any moment of time to ask a question or to add something. Most of the things that I'm going to present in this PPT is taken from your SLM, the self-learning module, but it may not be in the same order as the SLM. And for explaining things a little better, I would take up things from other sources so that places where I feel that SLM is not able to convey the concept properly, I take things from outside. I put in a lot of media elements to be able to get you to understand. And let's look at quickly the concepts of migration and diaspora. Before I do that, some resources I collected together. So, what you can do is while we are doing this, you guys can parallelly open another window and type in this ID, this URL, migrationpolicy.org, programs migration information source. I have picked up this websites which you can then bookmark and go through it. So you can open another window and type in this URL and bookmark this, and later you can while these classes are going on, various blogs or units, you can keep referring to these sites because it gives you some resources which you can use. More often than not, the SLMs are sufficient for you to do your assignments and give your examinations. But obviously, remember, information is like a deep pool. The lower you go, the more information you get. So and another thing that I keep telling is the fact that when we go through this presentation, you can keep noting down keywords. Those keywords are the way you can search for topics later. So more often than not, the way we understand or we gain information and knowledge today is based on specific things which interest us, which we want to read further or research further. So this is migrationpolicy.org. Then the second is the World Migration Report .iom, International Organization of Migration .int. This is a World Migration Report 2024, gives you some broad-based understanding as to how things are moving in 2024. So there is this major, negotiation which is happening between nation, nationality, and immigrant. So world over, you will read media news about, people are anti-immigration, and yet there is immigration, and nations cannot do without immigration. So there is this World Migration Report 2024. You can, as I said, you can open another Google window and, type this URL. Then there is this migration data portal .org, which has got resources. It's got various resources. You can go click on this, and all this you can do whenever you have time. That's why I thought it was, and especially because this is an introductory unit. Migration data portal. It has a tagline of the bigger picture. It's got some online tools, data sources, resources related to SDG. SDG stands for Sustainable Development Goals. So migration data portal. Then there is the UN Environment Program, resourcepanel.org, report human migration and natural resources. Obviously, human migration also involves natural resources, because when people migrate, they use resources. How these resources are able to sustain the human population. Remember, population is growing. Humanity currently faces a triple planetary crisis: climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. And interestingly, we all understand that we are all connected, and yet we tend to, degrade resources, which then affects us. If you would have been reading about in the news, there is a new virus which has hit China. So, this engagement between viruses and human beings, and how the viruses are jumping species. So resource panel org, human migration and natural resources. So that's another resource you can look at. It's got some infographics, it's got some key facts. Then there is a global diaspora network.org. Here you will find recommended books, articles, trainings, educational programs, and organizations dedicated to diaspora missions and missiology. So again, listen, at the end of the day, we need to understand the internet is also having a lot of resources. Today, I think the challenge is to find the correct place to find a resource. Also understand anything and everything on internet is not is not correct. So you need to cross verify information that you get on the information on the internet. Remember, there are all these spoofing sites which can put in wrong information. Wikipedia can put in wrong information, because remember, these are crowdsourced information collation. So any person with a mission to put disinformation, state actors, non-state actors, individuals, just for the fun of it, can put in wrong information. So any information that you get, cross verify from regular sources which are known. For example, International Organization of Migration is a valid resource, but you have to also look at the fact that you are not going on a spoofed site. So you need to always cross check, never believe in anything that you get on the internet. So there is this global diaspora network.org. You can again bookmark it. And as you come across resources, you can share it with your classmates on WhatsApp or any other platform on email, so that then these groups become a way for information and knowledge curation. So information iom.it diaspora, this UN migration, it also has in terms of policy and data about us, ensures that migration benefits all stakeholders. So IOM's website has a thing on migration, another thing on diaspora. Again, another website you can bookmark. All these websites you can bookmark. And if you come across more resources in terms of books, articles, do keep sharing it with your classmates, because remember, when you share, you tend to get perspectives. And remember, academics is all about perspectives. It's not about right, wrong, good, bad, true, false. It's about perspectives. More often than not, when we put in a SLM or we put a presentation, we do give the name of the scholar in terms of citation, because remember, each scholar would look at a perspective. Migration data portal, diasporas and their contributions. We have already looked at the migration data portal. You already have it. So let's look at this particular unit. This unit it engages with theories and discourses on migration and diaspora, some scholarship on these two subjects, concept of migration and diaspora. And always, whenever we talk about migration and diaspora, we have to understand migration is not a new phenomenon. It's as old as the human evolution itself. In fact, the earlier theory said that all life evolved in East Africa. The more recent theories talk about not just East Africa, there were pockets in other parts of Africa where life evolved. And once the life evolved, migration happened. Today, the whole population of the world, typically, if you look at the genetic composition, has some component in terms of African. Migrate from one place to another, one continent to another, relates to the movement of people across national boundaries. Remember, nation state is a very recent phenomena. Previously, there was no nation state. People used to migrate. And if you look at, I picked up this chart from Encyclopedia Britannica. This is how migration happened. Everything came out of, and this is, we are talking about 1.9 million years ago, to give you a perspective. So for all people who talk about immigration being bad and immigrants being bad, remember, all of us in one way or the other are immigrants in the world. Everybody has moved. And the latest one is 12,500 years ago. These are all color coded. This is an Encyclopedia Britannica diagram. You can always search on this. As I said, keep taking down keywords, or parallelly, you can open Google and keep searching on that. Another map, early human migration across the globe. YBP stands for year before present. So initial theories was East Africa, Ethiopia as the place where early evolution happened of early human being. But now they have discovered sites from Ghana, from South Africa, where evolution happened simultaneously. Okay, there is a recording going on. In case anybody needs the PPT, you can send me an email on my email ID. I am giving the email ID. Hang on. You can send me a mail and I can share the PPT with you. That also is doable. So another map, this is the genetically distinct Asian population, World History Encyclopedia. Another map which I found, world migration since 1500. Now this is 1500. The earlier maps was earlier human migration, but if you see, since 1500, the large part of migration is happening from Europe. How they have moved and how people have moved.
As a colonial ruler, they moved from across from their home to across nation.
You're right. So they moved, and being a student of history, history becomes a very important way to understand the present. So when they moved, they settled there. They had children out of wedlocks, non-wedlocks. So all these mixed populations started gathering. Then this movement, the colonial movement, allowed the colonized people to move back into the ones who were colonizing, and again a certain amount of mixing happened. So, for all those people who talk about purity of race, actually, purity becomes a political tool to be used. Otherwise, we are all migrating at one point or the other. Migration is permanent, semi permanent, change of residence by an individual, family, or group caused by various factors. Now, there are multiple factors for migration, which could be economic, better lifestyle. Remember, the term better itself is a very subjective term. How do you define better? Demographic imbalance, family reunifications, natural. Yeah, in fact, in the 21st century now, climate change and natural calamities because of climate change are becoming a large reason for migration. And then, of course, the wars. We had hoped that as human beings became, understood the fact that there was no solution out of wars, and two world wars had billions of people dying. Human being doesn't seem to have learned any lesson. Wars still go on, genocides are still happening, and so on and so forth. Migration can be of also various types: voluntary, involuntary, forced, internal, international. Demko Ross Chanel described migration as the most complex component of population change. And inevitably, whenever migration happens, there is a population change. It's an important network for diffusion of ideas and information. Now, understand one thing, because migration has been happening historically, this led to civilizations picking up information, ideas from various other civilizations. So if you read the earliest civilization of Egypt, the Nile civilization, or the Harappa, or the various civilizations, they used to borrow from each other. There was no internet, there was no social media, but people were moving. Human adjustments to economic, environment, and social problems. Migration is an interdisciplinary subject because remember, when people are migrating, in fact, earlier as a field of study, they were doing quantitative understanding of population geography, and it has moved to qualitative. It was earlier quantitative, and now it has moved to qualitative reading of anthropological interpretations, but more about understanding of migrant experience. So earlier they were seeing how many people are moving, what kind of a movement is happening. Now they're seeing what is the migration experience, because every person understands or relates to migration in a totally different way. For example, children are better suited to adjust to new situations, older people are not. According to Castles, migration is a part of the process of transformation in social structures and institutions and entire global political economy. Because look at the fact, each individual looks at the world in a totally different way. which is what I keep referring to as perspectives. At any moment of time, any information that each one of us see, we tend to interpret it in totally different ways. And that interpretation is based on basically a social cultural environment, the way we are socialized, the way we have been, trained to interpret things. Migration studies need to be embedded in broader social theory, drawing on full repertoire of social sciences, embraces all dimensions of human experience and demands an interdisciplinary approach. So you cannot study migration either from a historical basis or from a sociological basis or from an economic basis. And inevitably, that is what the problem happens in terms of pure subjects. Every subject expert tends to look at it from their subject point of view. But as we always, and especially me, I keep saying that everything is connected, and an interdisciplinary approach really, adds more value to looking at things. Sociologist Lee observed that factors which influence the decision of an immigrant can be divided those operating in the area of origin and destination. So the push and pull factors. In fact, this push and pull factors you will hear throughout this particular course. There is this particular push factors for people to be pushed out of a particular region, and there is a pull factor which allows people to be pulled into a particular region in terms of migration. Results of decision made by an individual, the rational actor. In fact, as we go along, we will see that it is not just an individual who makes a decision, but there is a whole, surrounding environment around the individual, which gets an individual to make a decision. And we also know that individuals a lot of times need not be rational actors. In fact, advertising is a clear way where human beings are not rational and they behave emotional. And that's what the beauty of human beings are. Then there are various ways migration is classified. There is a descriptive classification, geographical. There is a chronological classification based on periods when migration happens. There is a demographic and economic classifications. And remember, a whole lot of times when we hear things like people from global south want to immigrate into the global north, it is not that. In fact, in other MDI or various units, you will see that even people are migrating from the developed north into the developing south. There are all kinds of migration. It's a very reductionist way, or a very a skewed media focus which has put migration as a south to north movement. It's not that case. You will see that in various units as you go along. Then there is political and legal classifications, migrants under regular or illegal migrants, casual classifications, free forced migration. So there are various classifications, and various scholars have classified in a different way. United Nations fixes two basic features of migration: international migrant stock and international migration flow. These two terms also you will hear it pretty often in terms of migrant stock and migration flow. Stock means a measure of the numbers of international migration at a given point of time. Flow means the number of persons arriving or departing over the course of specific time. So, for example, the US election of 2024 was fought on the immigrant issue. In fact, today, a whole lot of political, rhetoric is based on immigration, or how immigration is bad or immigration is good. As I said, in fact, every person in terms of political rhetoric who talks about immigration is actually an immigrant in some sort of way. Because if you look at the genetic makeup of the whole world population, every person would have a certain percentage of the African genes. In fact, both measures are necessary to assess migration trends, the international migrant stock, and migration flow. So an organization, United Nations, keeps figuring out how much people are moving, what is the role of this movement. In fact, today nation states have to look at immigration because that determines, in terms of planning, in terms of natural resources, in terms of resource allocation. International migration has been explained by various social scientists, sociologists, social anthropologists, demographics, economic, because each one tends to look at it in a particular way. So the economists will look at the fact that how these immigrants contribute in terms of national incomes or GDPs, or are they, or these immigrants looking at resources which would be meant for the populations. And then remember, underlying all these is politics, national politics, global politics, geopolitical, stuff. So some theories on international migration. Let's look at some theories briefly. There is, and more often than not, you will also see as you go through this course that a lot of talk happens on the economic side, because economics is of numbers. Most people understand numbers very fast. Qualitative is that much more difficult. Quantitative is much more easy because it's numbers. So if you say the number has moved from 1 to 2, you understand it fast. Otherwise, to quantify things becomes a little bit difficult. Explains international from a macro level perspective, difference in supply and demand of labor. So one of the basic things everybody talks about is in terms of, in fact, MDI 007 is totally about labor, about how labor has moved, how changes in terms of, and MDI 8 is in terms of changes in production. Changes in production has led to changes in movement of labor. Labor is very much economic because labor contributes to economic growth. A country or region which has a large presence of labor related to the available of capital will have excess supply of labor and low wages. So when we go on to MDI 007, you will look at how labor has moved throughout history, how industrialization changed, how the labor was treated. And MDI 8 is about production processes, how changes in production processes affected labor. A country or region which has a large capital relative to the presence of labor, we have a labor scarcity. Typically, the global north and south. Global north has capital, global south has less capital and more people, so more labor. The differential in wages induces the labor from labor surplus low wage countries to move to labor scarce high wage countries. This is when you look at other units, and as we go through this whole course, you will realize that there are other factors which add in. It's not as simple as what is, because this is MDI 001, it's an introduction. Neoclassical theory therefore implies that labor market mechanisms are derived, direct and sole factors influence decision of. And we will see through this course how it is not the sole factor, but one of the various factors which influences decisions. Other factors do not have much effect. So again, as I said, these are perspectives. So once you add on to other perspectives from as we go along in this course with various MDIs, you will see it is not as reductionist as the earlier things that we understood as. International migration and investment in human capital comes at a cost. In order to earn higher wages, investment, and inevitably every decision an individual makes has a cost benefit analysis. So a rational actor looks at a cost benefit analysis, an emotional actor may or may not look at the cost benefit. So for example, to migrate, there's a cost of travel, cost of living, effort required to learn another language, adjusting to a different culture, psychological cost. All these things are costs. And more often than not, so it also becomes clear that it's not just a higher wage one looks at when migrating. So let's forget the international migration. Let's look at an internal migration. Even to internally migrate, one does not just look at a wage. One looks at the cost of living, one looks at the psychological, the cultural, and other issues, and then makes up decisions. So, Messi et al. In 1998, theory assumes that pay and employment differentials across again. This particular theory, the neoclassical theory, assumes that pay and employment differentials across countries are primary motivators for people to migrate. Migration will come to a halt once such disparities are eliminated. This particular theory also understands the fact theories are constructed by scholars based on a set of conditions which the scholar encounters and based on the perspective of the scholar. So a different scholar with a different perspective in a different time frame might not look at this theory as the right theory and may come up with some other theory. And that's what happens. That's how various theories come about. Critics argue that the strategy just reduces migrants to labor force and ignores gender, ethnicity, and social class stratification. Now, also one needs to understand that as we go through in academics, because of different perspectives, there is a sense of confusion. So a lot of times students come to a course and say, but I am not being able to find an answer. So understand one thing, the answer lies in how you see it. There is no particular answer in terms of a definite way things happen. In fact, if one looks at one's life, there is no definite way things happen. Why you pick up a particular course. So if I was to ask students as to why they take a course, they would come up with various explanations why they are taking this course. And those explanations might be based on an initial interaction with the subject. Once something down the road happens, those expectations and those understandings change, and then the student might look at it in a totally different way. Furthermore, mobility barriers such as political or structural barriers are not considered. And obviously, there are all these barriers which are there. For example, in our normal life, there are all these barriers which are there whenever we like to do something. We like a particular job or we like a particular subject. There's a barrier to possibly do this subject formally, or family issues, or constraints, and so on and so forth. So these barriers are also there. So that's the new classical theory. Then there is the new economics of migration, emerged in the 80s. Again, as I said, also besides the scholar who is, or scholars who are devising this theory, all these are also based on a time period as to what is happening in that particular time period. So, for example, if you look at today and you pick up a news item, or you go to a news channel and look at it, it might appear that the whole world seems to be fighting with each other. Everybody seems to be at war. And one wonders that was the earlier time more prone to people fighting with each other, or present? Understand one thing, that today we are getting a lot of information coming our way. That's why we get to know about these wars. Earlier, information was not coming. Throughout history, people have been fighting with each other. In fact, researchers have found out that the current era is most peaceful among the whole history of human beings. So similarly, the new economics of migration, integrated approach created to connect different levels of social structure, account historical and contemporary activities. In fact, students of history are at a particular advantage, because anything or everything which happens today, if you go back into history and see what happened, you will realize the fact that whatever is happening today has already happened in history. And more often than not, there is a whole lot of cyclic movements. Individual rationality and macroeconomic conditions are no longer considered as the sole factor influencing decision making. So obviously, this is totally different from the neoclassic theory of migration. Instead, new migration economics highlights the significance of bigger groups of individuals, such as families, homes, or even communities, between micro and micro level analysis. So, between two theories, there is a 180-degree things apart. Again, it depends on scholars, it depends on time frames, it depends on new perspectives, it may depend on new data which might have come in, or it may depend on a new way to study migration. The model posits that people's collective goals are to maximize expected income. Now, maximize expected income is also a subjective. What do I define as maximize? So, there is a lot of subjectivity in the way human beings perceive things. When I perceive myself as getting a better deal, how do I define that perception? Is it actually a better deal, or I have made it in my mind? I'm biased and I have made it in my mind that I'm getting a better deal. So there is a lot of human psychology which comes into the picture, while minimizing risk associated with all types of market failure, not only labor market failures. So this is the new economics of migration. Economic improvement in sending nations may not mean the end of migration. On the contrary, it may increase the strain on migrants. Now, earlier theory talked about the fact that once the wages between labor becomes equal, then migration may not happen. But now they are talking about the fact that, in fact, if the poorer nations, because of migration, get money into the family or an individual, there'll be more pressure on that individual to migrate. A rise in the return on local productivity may make migration more appealing as a means of overcoming capital and risk restriction. So, if I get the money, there is a chance that I might migrate more, because now I have the resources to migrate. So, it's almost a 180-degree shift from what we read in the neoclassic theory. So, this is the new economics of migration. Regardless of whether pay differential exists or not, the model predicts that migration will persist. Because there will be always other factors. There could be a factor of family reunification, there could be a factor of war, there could be a factor of climate change, there could be a factor of a perception. Furthermore, households in community with varying income distribution may be motivated differentially by the same predicted gain. And this predicted gain, the word gain itself is extremely subjective. Who is defining this gain?
Gain is getting something in a monetary terms.
Correct. But again, what do I define as gain? So, for example, when we say a young person is planning a life and they say, I want to be financially secure, what is that figure that we talk about in terms of financially secure? And we realize the fact there is no figure. Each person comes up with a very subjective figure based on some calculation which he or she thinks as right. For example, when you pick up a job, you look at some parameters and you extrapolate those parameters to look at a career, or you look at a financial independence, or you look at a stable. There are so many things which keep moving. For example, it has been pointed out, particularly by feminists, that household members do not always share the same aims and priorities. So, when you look at migration only from a male perspective, you might tend to miss out what the female the other gender feels in terms of migration and goes through. So we will see when we look at migrant groups or diaspora groups, like for example the Filipinos. A large Filipino population of women migrates as caregivers. There's a huge diaspora population of Filipino women who are caregivers. But what is the consequence of this migration on the families, on the children, on the husbands, on them? So unless you are able to understand and study all these, so that is why this particular topic of migration and diaspora is an interdisciplinary field. You need to study, and it's not that you have, and also understand, because migration happens in different time intervals, the experience of different time intervals might be different. People who migrated from India in the 90s and people who migrated in the 2000s would have totally different worldviews. Then there is a theory of segmented labor market. International migration is the result of modern industrial societies' underlying labor demands. So, and if you see, a lot of theories borrow from each other. Sometimes they are extensions. Sometimes there is, it's like old wine in a new bottle. According to Pure, migration is caused by pull factors in the destination countries rather than push factors in the source countries. And that is why sometimes academics becomes a little confusing if you're looking at definitive answers. And you will look at each theory and say, but this looks better or this looks fine. And then you say, but there is criticism to this particular theory. So as I said earlier, these theories are given out by scholars who looked at a particular perspective in terms of migration in a particular time frame. The time frame becomes important. Then there is a historical structural theory or a world system theory. Migration is a natural result of capitalist market creation, emerging countries, penetration of global economy into peripheral regions. The historical structural theory talks about the world in terms of core and periphery. The core being the developed countries and periphery being the developing and the underdeveloped countries. And more often than not, the periphery is supplying the core. You will read about this in other units as we go along. And that is why I said a lot of times, if you come across words which are not very clear, just note them down. You can search for them, or you can, as you go along, information on these words will come. International migration has little to do with income or employment differentials. Rather, it stems from dynamics of market development and global economic political structure. And you will also understand that everything works parallelly. So there is politics, there is economics, there is how the economics move, how the globalization has come in. In fact, in Unit 2, we talk about globalization, we talk about transnationalism, how it is affecting. And then you will realize that there is a negotiation happening between various concepts academically. But on the ground also, there is this negotiation which is happening. It is something like this. When you look at your life vis-a-vis the world around, you are negotiating. You're negotiating in terms of what subjects to read, what careers to take, your decisions in terms of your love, your decision in terms of your money, your decision in terms of your engagement. You're negotiating. You're negotiating with your environment, and out of this negotiation, something comes out which gets you peace or you get into conflict. Similarly, in academics, when we are studying subjects, you will see there is negotiations. There are these dynamics of market development, there is a global economy, political structure. Then there is something called a social capital theory. Now, these are some things that I'm going very fast in terms of giving you an overview. The SLM might explain it a little more, In case you are interested, you can always do a Google search and read about it more. According to this theory, migrant networks play a critical role in the perpetuation of international movement. Uh, and why and how this is applicable is, if you look around internal migration, how do people from, let's say, Bihar or UP come into Delhi, or from Maharashtra or MP? One person comes in, and then the people from the village, from the family. For example, the other day, I was buying these peanuts, groundnuts, sorry, not peanuts, groundnuts. Winters is the time, because I live in Delhi, in suburbs of Delhi. Groundnut is the time when winters come in. So I was asking this boy who was selling groundnuts, where is he from? So he was from UP. So I asked the next question. I said, so, but groundnuts you sell in winters, what do you do in summers? So he had a sugarcane juice shop. So I said, is it your shop? The boy told me, no, it is the shop of the village. So obviously, two, three people from the village, obviously one person would have come. Then he would have called his relatives, or from caste brothers or whatever, and then they shed pooled money and set up this shop. And now half the time they sell sugarcane, and the other time they sell groundnuts. These networks, according to Pelloni, are interpersonal links that link migrants, former migrants, non-migrants, and destination places to ties of family, kinship, friendship, and shared community of origin. So when he talks about village, it's a shared community of origin. It could also be kinship. It could be friendship. It could be a couple of people from the same village decide to come and settle in Delhi or Gurgaon. And similarly, it is the case with every part of the country and every part of the world. When people's relationship alter in ways that make it easier to act, social capital is said to be created. More often than not, if you speak a particular language and you are in a public place, your ears are tuned to that particular language. And if you come across somebody speaking that language and you are in a alien place, you feel a sense of comfort. For example, language, religion, food habits bring a sense of comfort. When one user in a personal network migrates, links are then turned into resources that a potential migrant can use to acquire access to abroad work and lower the overall cost. There's a cost of relocation. As I said, a new culture, a new language, a new way of life, it's a cost. There's a huge psychological cost. Every act of migration generates social capital for all non-migrants, increasing the chance of migrating. So this is the social capital theory. Social networks in nation of origin can develop into migrant networks that connect the home country with the host country. First migrant who arrives to a new nation without any social ties, migration is costly. Then after chain migration, migrant network lowers network cost, which is always the case. In any situation, when you know somebody, the costs are lower. So this is the social capital theory. Expands over time until network connections have spread broadly enough in sending regions that all people who want to travel can do so without difficulty. After that, the migration, because everybody has moved, then the migration becomes easy. The amount of a country's migratory movement is not directly tied to pay differentials or employment rates. It's like how the Sikhs from Punjab settled in Canada. Today, Canada has the largest Sikh population outside the Indian Punjab, because one person went from one particular village, got other people, and it is not about pay differentials now. Similarly, Indians in South Africa or Indians in Caribbeans, declining costs and dangers of travel resulting from an increase of mic over time appears to outweigh this consideration. So this is what is called the social capital theory. more institutionalized through establishment and elaboration of network, it becomes less dependent on the circumstances that first triggered it. And then inevitably it's like, for example, Delhi has something called a Delhi Tamil Sangam or a Telugu Sangam. So internally it has become institutionalized. Similarly, there are migrant networks in the US. It's become institutionalized. In Canada, it's become institutionalized. They become more selective and competitive, which means that joining a migrative does not guarantee you are able to migrate. Now, this is obviously, law of diminishing returns, how things happen. Then various other things come into the picture. So this is what is called the social capital theory. Then there is something called cumulative causation. Explains how migration starts and progresses. International migration tends to sustain over time in ways that gradually raises the possibility of additional movement. Something akin to social capital theory. Causation is cumulative in the sense that each act of migration changes the social context in which subsequent migration decisions are made. So one person goes and then the news filters back, and then people are more predisposed to a particular. It's like travel. So I hear on radios these travel shows where these travel people are explaining how it is, where they are traveling. For example, they are going to these hot springs in Mongolia, and they will describe in detail what to do. Now, once that is done, the next migration or the next travel is much more easier. Similarly with migration. Because the feedback mechanism of cumulative causation are largely outside the reach of government, social, economic, and cultural change brought about by internet in sending and give the movement of people a powerful impetus. So you cannot control. Now there is this information flow which is happening, which is beyond any control. Cumulative influence of individual decision can alter the context in which migration decision is made over time. So all this information, and today specifically with social media, with internet, this information flow is extremely fast. And that is how transnational networks, transnational, because more than one nation, becomes very strong, because information is continuously flowing back and forth. These feedback mechanisms were, when they were one way and were slow, things took a larger time to materialize. Today, the information networks are in real time. Anything happens anywhere and the information quickly comes back. Then there is something called a human agency approach. Purely structural, with human beings appearing only as stock or labor force. The push-pull elements of economy or demographics are major actors in their assessment. How typically Indians moved into the Gulf and set up shop out there. Politics, government ideologies, various types of market, examples of central actors on the micro and macro level. So this is a human agency. How, especially for example, the Gulf movement happened from down south. Kerala was the earliest one which moved into the Gulf. There was shortage of jobs. There was a lot of jobs which need to be done. There was a shortage of human capital, human labor. The people from Kerala started it. Today, a lot of people from North also are going to Gulf. Proposes a human agency perspective to international labor migration that stresses the person. Why people choose to relocate, stay abroad, or return home, demand their own inquiry and understanding. Aisha has also migrated to Gulf. Aisha is stating that she's also migrated to Gulf. There was another student who was telling me who comes from Kerala, who was telling me how earlier Keralites who were migrating to Gulf are now migrating to Europe. So what are those factors? Now, these are, research subject as to what are the factors which got them to migrate earlier to Gulf, and what are the factors now they are getting to migrate to Europe.
So can I just add something?
Yeah, please.
So a lot of people see the Gulf as a kind of launch pad or some kind of stepping stone to the west,
Hmm.
because maybe going there directly may not be so feasible. But if you are here, you have international experience, and it helps you to get a foot in the door in the west, which is your final destination.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, Gulf doesn't really offer passports, and there is
Doesn't offer
if that
citizenship. Doesn't offer
yeah.
citizenship.
Yeah, correct. So what happens at the end of the day if your visa is revoked for some reason, then you have to go back home, right?
Hmm.
So there is no long-term security in that sense. Even if you've lived here for 60 years, you can still just be kicked out tomorrow.
Correct.
So yeah, that is also a factor, I think.
So once you go into these kind of researches, you figure out why people are moving, and everybody has a different lived experience. Everybody understands it in a different way. Yeah, Vinod, you want to say something? Vinod, Vinod, you wanted to say something? Vinod, are you there? I think Vinod's net connection might be a problem. Vinod, whenever your net connection is okay, you can type in if you want. I have my chat open so people can see. In case you're not able to speak or your net connection is unstable. And secondly, for people who have joined later, yeah, there is a chat which has come in. Maybe an issue with your mic, Vinod. Why don't you type in then in that case, whatever you want to speak? I know typing is that much more difficult than speaking. And secondly, for people who have joined later, in my class specifically, you don't need to raise your hand. You can just interject, and we remember this particular class. You are all working. You have experience. This is more of an experiential learning class. Okay, maybe what I found is that next gen from family move to Gulf don't want to come back. They want to move to EU or NA. Exactly what Aisha was saying. Because in the Gulf, there is an issue of citizenship. For it really does not depend on how long you have stayed out there. There is no way you can get a citizenship. So more often than not, people look at Gulf as a stepping stone to EU or North America. You're right. In fact, there are a whole lot of these videos on YouTube about which countries are able to offer you permanent residencies at a particular cost or with certain conditions. And there is a whole lot of, irrespective of all these media news item about anti-immigration and this and that in terms of a political rhetoric, people are moving all the time. People are moving all the time, and as more often than not, that movement is because of a perceived better deal. So the human agency approach, Longwa and Suter. So if you see, these are late 20th century, early 21st century. Not only structural incentives and impediments account for this event, but also definitions of limit beyond which, hang on, to acquire a permanent, we can live there as diaspora. Which it is important to acquire a permanent, we can live there as diaspora. Why?
Knows why it is important to acquire a permanent citizenship in any other country outside
uh,
your home country.
Anshika, listen, today you have to look at this explanation can be done from multiple perspectives. So there could be a perspective as people might want something in a place where they are born or where they have a citizenship, but they are looking for something more. Say, for example, I'll give you an example. A person might feel that he or she has more potential. Let's give it another example. A person might have done his engineering or medicine in a country of birth or citizenship, but now does not find opportunities which are commensurate with his or her expectation of potential or expertise. Now, this person, he or she might find out another place which offers that potential and would like to utilize that potential. Now, also remember, once the human being moved from the, you're a history student, hunter gatherer into agriculturalist, human beings started becoming permanently placed in a particular situation. And at that moment, I want a sort of a permanency. And citizenship gives you certain benefits. So, for example, if today I'm a citizen of India, I get certain benefits being a citizen of India, which I do not get if I am not a citizen of India. Similarly, if I'm a citizen of Nepal, or I'm a citizen of US, or I'm a citizen of France, there are certain benefits which come, and that is why a permanency is required. It's a similar thing. A permanency in marriage, or a live-in relationship, or a casual relationship, people more often than not, especially human beings, look at certain amount of permanency. Anisha, Anishka.
Sir, I got that. But what I was thinking is, being a permanent citizen of a particular country, it gives you more responsibility towards that nation rather than facilities.
Not anymore. Not anymore. Because today, with transnationalism, in fact, we will study about transnationalism in Unit 2. How, because of globalization and this faster transportation and faster media, the concept of a nation with national boundaries is more like a concept rather than anything. So, today, for example, Indians in the US are much more having much more ritualistic and the Indian way of life than the Indians in India. We if you were to meet Indians from the US, you would find them to be much more backward in terms of the modernization which Indians in India have achieved over a period of time. So these are choices one makes. Anishka, it's not as simple. And you might have not gone through a situation where you looked at things in a different perspective. So these are perspectives how people look at things. Individuals, families, communities look at those perspectives. Anishka, Anshika, sorry, Anshika.
Yes, it's clear now.
And Anshika, as you go through this course, you will realize these multiple perspectives will get you to look at things in a very different way. It's something like this. A person who has been born and brought up in a village and has looked at the village life without any external inputs from outside cultures or outside ways of life might feel the village life as perfect, because it's quite possible at the village life is very self-sustaining. There is everything available. But there is also a possibility that when a foreign culture or a cultural construct or perspective enters that person in terms of media exposure, or him or her going outside, he might reject it, or he might adopt it with full force. So this is how, again, as I said, the word is negotiation, how we negotiate. Anshika?
Oh, yes, sir.
And as we go along, you will see how these things changes, but also definition of limit beyond which deprivation becomes intolerable and thus necessitates drastic measures such as migration. So individual psychology, and that's why interdisciplinary psychology becomes a very important thing, because each individual understands the environment in a totally different way. Some might feel it is perfectly fine. Some might start detesting it. Some might, negotiate and say resign myself to a fact. And this is not a present situation. This has been through the history of human beings. What is good, what is worse, necessary or impossible. So some people might feel the road conditions, there are potholes on the road, it is fine. Some might say, why the potholes are there, we are paying taxes. Some might say this particular politician is bad. Some might say this party is bad. So everybody comes up with multiple perspectives, and as a scholar or as an academician, you look at perspectives and then figure out what it is. There's, as I keep saying, there's nothing right, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing good, nothing bad. Are decided by human beings who appraises their own circumstances and not by the abstract. So it all depends on how people understand it, engage with it, negotiate with it, and carry on. So let's quickly look at diasporas. How do we define diasporas? Jewish experience. So we looked at migration. Again, as I said, this is unit 1. Let's explain what diaspora is. Remained the paradigm for a very long time and was marked by the destruction of Jerusalem, dispersal of Jews. So a whole subject of diaspora earlier started with the Jewish experience. And the whole concept of diaspora was a shade of victimization and negativity. Oh, we have gone through this suffering. All the people who are migrating have gone through this suffering. These collective people. So that is how the diaspora study started earlier. In fact, there is a lot of changes in the diaspora studies. Started with the Jewish experience. Postmodern world concept was radically reordered in response to growing transnationalism. Again, the word transnationalism will keep coming in multiple units. So understand this word. In unit 2 we will read a little bit more about transnationalism, some theories on transnationalism. The world has moved much more since the 10th century or the 9th century or the 11th century or the 15th century. Every century there were major changes which happened. Formal citizenship, the concept of nation states itself has changed the way we understand diaspora. In recent decades make the transnational engagements more dynamic and substantial. How are things, these changes will again be done in various units. When you go through various diasporas, when you look at how they are engaging, a lot of times you will feel that there is a lot of similarity, and at other times you will feel there's a lot of difference between that. So Safran was one of the earliest scholars. Main characteristics of diaspora. Now, Safran's main characteristics of diaspora itself has changed a lot. They or their ancestors have been dispersed from an original center to 2 or more foreign regions. Retain a collective memory, vision, or myth about their original homeland. Believe they are not and perhaps can never be fully accepted in their host societies. There are 6 characteristics. So these are 3. Their ancestral home is idealized. Conditions are favorable. Now, if you read this, you will realize the fact that a lot of it was made on the Jewish, experience. They believed all members of the diaspora should be committed to the maintenance or restoration of the original homeland. Absolutely focused on the Jewish experience. They continue in various ways to relate to the homeland. But as people moved, in fact, in writings on Indian diaspora, you will find the same characteristics out there. So when Indians were taken as indentured labor, they also felt the same. So that is why Safran gave the 6 characteristics of diaspora. Cohen in 1995 adopted Safran's definition but added 4 more features. Diaspora should include scattering groups with aggressive or voluntary processes, should possess a strong connection with the past that acts as a block to assimilation. And then you will realize that all communities which migrated would fall in this four characteristics, additional features. Should be defined positively rather than negatively, have also a common identity with co-ethnic members in other countries, set colonial settlement, overseas students, refugees, or economic migrants. Also understand the fact that any migration does not lead to diaspora formation. Just because you have migrated from your country into some other place where there are other people, a diaspora formation is not an automatically formation. It almost kind of, all these things tantamount to the fact that just people, set of people have migrated from one country to another and they form a diaspora. That's not the case. Theorization of diaspora can be categorized into four different groups with a focus on diverse aspect of immigrant life. Now, again, the way diaspora was studied by different scholars, different academicians. They looked at it in different perspectives. They looked at it in different perspectives in different time frames. Classical phase describe four migration of immigration, including victimhood diaspora of Jewish, African, and Armenians. So actually, it started with Jewish, added Africans and Armenians, because remember there was a large body of Africans who were taken as slaves. And also remember the fact that diaspora studies is a very recent phenomena. Armenians also had this, there is this Armenian genocide, which Armenians have this in this collective memory. So again, that's where history is a great subject for you to understand why things are happening the way they're happening today. So how there was the Persian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, how the various civilizations moved. And if you see, somewhere down the line, whole history of human being is very cyclic. Things keep on happening in a very cyclic way. The second conceptualization incorporates historical, cultural, and social diversity of people living in diaspora. So, in various units, in various MDIs that you will be studying by various teachers, there are various aspects of this component which will come to your way. Now, because the way your course is being taught is bits and pieces. For example, MDI 1 is coming, I'm starting it later in the day, where you have already read about various diasporas or identity formations. Now, that is why it's very important for you to keep taking down keywords from various MDIs and various units, and then you'll be able to, collate it together in your head. Third group of theories deconstruct bipolar notions of home and host countries and celebrate the inconsistencies and fluidity of immigrants' identity in diaspora third space. So it's not that a person moves from one place to another, forms a diaspora, and there's a bipolar of there versus here. There is also a fluid space. Fourth, conceptualizes emphasizes on relevance of origin and historical exploitation of people of poor countries. So it could also be how a person from a particular community or a particular place looks at the whole experience. Historical experience and present negotiations play a decisive role in the formation of cultural identity of immigrants. So how is the Indian community looking at it? How is the Korean community looking at it? How is the Chinese community looking at it? How is the Jewish community looking at it? How are the Europeans looking at it? So these are the various types of diasporas. Cohen identified these types of diasporas, but you could always
Hello?
I think sir left the chat video. Sorry.
There is some technical issue. Let me check with you. Okay. You please be here only.
What happened, Firoz?
Sir, Abhay sir left. I think maybe some technical.
Acha, maybe some.
He is disconnected. Huh?
I'll just call him. He's coming. He's coming back.
Sorry, guys, something happened with the internet. It just kind of popped away. Can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Just there's already a WhatsApp group. Yes, एक minute. Sada sir, please sharing. Can you allow me to share? Sada sir.
You can share now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Where did my presentation go? Ah, there it is. Sorry, give me a sec. There is a particular way this has to be done. Was I here when the net went? When I disappeared? guys?
No. You mean like was your this thing still showing on the on
Yeah,
Zoom? Then
were you
no,
seeing this PPT or this particular slide?
it went away, I think. Yes.
Okay, so Cohen identified these five types of diasporas. But as I was speaking, for example, currently, if you look at media, you will see there is a lot of people are talking about digital diasporas. So there is a new type of diasporas which is being talked about. As I keep repeating, and I'll keep repeating in my future classes, remember, all these definitions, these theories are given by particular scholars or academicians in particular time frames. It's very important to understand the time frame. So this is how they were Cohen categorized types of diasporas. And also remember, these are not watertight compartments. So Jews could also be a trade diaspora, but largely they have tried and typecast it into victim, imperial, labor, trade, business, cultural hybrid. So that's how the categorization was done by Cohen. Diasporic formations are complex and reasons for the formation. So remember, as I told you earlier, just because a community or a group of people migrated does not mean a diasporic formation gets formed. Diasporic formation it does not happen automatically. It's complex, and the reason of formation is manifold. Identities have been deterritorialized. Nation has outgrown the state because of its diasporic tentacles. Now, you need to understand the difference between nation and state, and I would suggest, why don't you just Google it, because more often than not, most people confuse nation and state. State is a political formation. Nation is a much larger concept in terms of identity, in terms of various, the way a cultural construction happens. So one needs to understand the difference between nation and state. That's why there's a difference between nationalism and patriotism. So these two concepts, just kind of Google it and figure it out. Diasporic identities are constructed and deconstructed in a flexible and situational way. And today, with globalization, faster transport, and a 24/7 media, the way an identity is constructed, or the way people construct identities, is marked different from what they were in the 15th or the 16th century. So you could be in the US, a US citizen, and your identity might be absolutely Indian, because you are connected so much with the politics, with the culture, with every aspect of the Indian way of life, and yet you are there. So it's kind of, that's where transnationalism becomes a big talking point. Defining the term or coming out with an ideal type is often confronted with the problem of applicability. So, for example, when the undivided India got partitioned after the British left, the people who came from Pakistan into India, are they a diasporic formation of Pakistan? What is it? So in fact, that is how, even in terms of partition literature, a lot of times it can be looked at migration or diaspora. So whenever somebody uses a particular term, you have to look at who's the author, who's the scholar, who is giving that term, in what context. What needs to be highlighted is that every act of migration does not necessarily lead to a diasporic formation, which I was talking to you earlier. There has to be reasons why a diasporic formation happens. And diaspora is not a homogeneous term. So every Indian, let's say in the US, is not a homogeneous community Indian member. Once you go to US, there is one identity of an Indian, But then there is another identity of a Telugu, Tamil, Keralite, Punjabi, UPite, Maharashtrian, and they have their individual formations. Identity, when you are studying, and you will be studying identity in other units, identity itself is a very complicated animal to negotiate with. And all of us have multiple identities, and we pick and choose identity like hats we wear. Highlighted that time has to pass before migrant community can be called a diaspora. So that's one of the things Cohen talked about in terms of time has to pass before it has to be multiple hops, and B, time has to pass. So let's quickly sum up. There is no migration. If there is no migration, there is no question of formation of diaspora. Not all migrant communities can be termed as diaspora. As various theories mention, it is the permanent or settled migration in other countries having social, cultural, emotional links with the home country that qualifies a community as a diaspora. There has to be an emotional link. And today that emotional link is that much more easier to make with social media, because you do not have to wait for a letter for months. You are 24 by 7 real time connected. There are also various types of diversities and complexities in formation of diaspora, as well as the relationship with home and host countries. There are some references and suggested reading. Your SLM has given a list of readings. As I keep repeating, and I'll keep reiterating, if you come across some reading, some video, some movie, do share it with your classmates, because it's always good to share, because that way each of you add to those perspectives. And this class with you as students is more of an experiential learning rather than a formalized classroom learning, and that is the best way to go about, because there are multiple motives for you to join this class, and each motive is a valid motive. Okay, I am done talking. Any questions? Hang on, there is some chat out here. There's already a WhatsApp group. Can you share the WhatsApp group? Okay, Pravina, Vinod, please share WhatsApp group invite, please, with Pravina. I think Firoz can handle it. Pravina, please get Pravina to join. Any questions? Let me switch on my video so that you can see me. Whoever has not seen me, hi guys. Any questions?
Hello, sir. The session was quite very good and impressive. Thank you for the session, sir.
Thank you, Anshika, for giving me a compliment on Saturday. It makes up the weekend. But we meet again tomorrow. So thank you. So, in fact, Anshika, being a history student, history is a very, very interesting subject. In fact, a lot of people feel history is very boring, but history is a very interesting subject, because once you study history, you can figure out that, oh, this has already happened and it is still happening. So, a lot of questions that are you fail to grasp today can easily be answered through history.
Sir, it's true, because whatever I'm reading, I have read 3 books of migration and diaspora, and there are many incidents which are connected to the history or migration. Both subjects are very interconnected, and how history affects the migration, how many incidents and all of things. So history really helped me understand these
Correct.
books.
Correct. Absolutely. And as I said, if you look at if you look at it on a broader perspective, there is a lot of cyclic things which happen. A lot of things which we think is new has already been done and is recycled, like old wine in a new bottle. Firoz, if you can add.
Yes, sir.
Anshika.
Can I ask something else?
Please.
Can I ask something else? What are the career opportunity of these subjects, and how a PhD degree from a reputative university like JNU, or what are the things in this subject only, like migration and diaspora? And what are the
Anshika,
opportunities I can get from this?
so listen, because it's an interdisciplinary subject, and today, for example, migration is a done thing in the world. Now, for example, a company would look at how would migration and diversity add to its value, its social value. There are multinationals operating, people are moving. For example, as I was using the term digital diaspora, so today countries are giving visas, digital, they are visas, short term, long term visas for people. So today, as an Indian, if I was working for an American company, I can get a visa, a 5 year to 7 year visa to stay in Dubai and work. And I'm not working for people in Dubai, I'm working for an American company. Because countries are looking at the fact that whenever I am there, I am an economic engine. I am generating economy, I am generating innovation. Listen, migration is a very important way civilizations have moved and benefited. Do not get stuck with the political rhetoric. Political rhetoric is separate. Every immigrant which comes to a country is obviously an economic engine, because for living, human beings have to eat, they have other needs, creature comforts, and these are an economic activity. So every immigration always helps. New ideas, innovations are all immigration. So companies would need people who understand migration, who understands diasporas. Today there are huge diasporic movements. India is a recipient to the largest remittances from Indian diaspora. A lot of Indian bureaucracy does not understand the concept of how diasporas country now people countries and people are organizations are waking up to realize the benefits of migration and diaspora. States are waking up to realize the importance of migration and diaspora. So public policy, environment issues, UN organizations, all these are career opportunities, where if you understand what is migration, what is diaspora, how is migration happening, what are the various factors, it becomes a great source of career. Plus, PhD is a separate field. So today, unless you have done research, listen, at the end of the day, any nation can progress only with effective data and research, because based on that research and data is policy going to be made. And we always have shortcomings in understanding data, how it is moving, what are the things happening, how are the changes happening. For example, climate change is real. Any person might deny it. Climate change is real. Look at the vagaries in which nature happens. Now, if you are able to understand climate change and migration, then you are able to value add to policy making for governments. Okay, Sada, has anybody here read the book India Moving: A History of Migration?
Are few things, Abhay.
Yeah,
In fact, if you see the composition of our students, many are from UN. I think few are from UN organization, some are from embassy, and some are from civil society organization. Okay, so civil society organization, what Abhay told, they work in grassroots organization and they deal with migrants, like return migrants, even the migrants who are going to other countries. So there are lot many works for them, and which is very in the initial stage now, because many states they are just starting migration. Old migration, we don't have much policy on them, only in the international relation and all those. But in new area like new migrants, and there is lots of policies required, and you can work in many organizations like UN organization. Also, Abhay gave example. Some of our students they work with the UN, staff. They published paper. I shared last time also. In fact, you can work with them, get hands-on knowledge, and get into those kind of organization. So from this MA level, you can get those kind of opportunity. If you show interest and sincerity, we can explore those opportunity. Also, there are public policy platform like Planning Commission, Niti Aayog and all. You can also explore how to deal with migration. I think increasingly migration is a part of every kind of public policy, whether it is climate change, whether it is economic affairs, remittance, and all these FDI, all this migration is a part of that. So,
Abs-
huh, so
Absolutely.
so you have to explore creatively how you can engage your knowledge and skills. Many places you don't think that it is your interpretation, knowledge and skills and your ability to say how it is important, your knowledge, rather than somebody else is spotting you, your knowledge. So this is how the current market is working. You have to showcase your knowledge, expertise. You have to create public opinion also through your work and activities. All these are matter. And this is a program specifically designed for that, so that we can have area like human trafficking where legal aspects are very important. We have legal people here. I think some of our students are from law background, so they deal with international law. And this is an area which not many people are there, even in legal profession. Okay? There are so many issues, marriage related issue, trafficking issue, and human rights issue, which law can deal with. And our lawyers are more equipped with national law, but not many are dealing with international law. So those areas we can explore as a legal profession, as public policy professionals, as civil society actors, and you have to be active. Not that somebody will offer you some opportunity. You have to be very active, participate, and there are hundreds of forums for that. You be there in the not just seminar conference. You be there in the public platform like you people are attending on Sika, Aisa, this kind of self motivation to attend class, self motivation to participate in public policy debate is important, because you learn, you also share your knowledge. What is happening? Many students they think it is just exam, we'll pass and then we score good mark, and that way I don't think you can get a good career. So you have to think how you can apply your knowledge. So Abhay already mentioned, I also mentioned. So be very active, and there are many platforms. I'll connect with you. Abhay will also connect with you, and we'll keep uh, actively engaging. And see, all these public policy, civil society, IOM, they need engagement. They don't need just talk of knowledge. Okay, so they need engagement. So, and you see migration is every day changing. Tomorrow something, war will happen, some COVID like situation will happen. Migration policy will change abruptly. You have to have common sense with your skills and knowledge, stock of knowledge. So you have to be continuously engaged. Once you are outdated, you will not be in the career or job, all this. Even in the job also, every day you have to upgrade. So this is the spirit you have to take, and I think those who are sincere, they'll get something. They'll also explore their creative way where to fit in their career.
Okay, Pravina, you have been added to the group, Pravina. And Vinod, I have not read the book that you suggested. In case you come across, some PDF file or something, just send it to me.
Yes, you please share like Chinma Tambe and all. They have been in our platform earlier, so they have been working in a very uh, means a very very fun, what we can say, new area of migration.
Hmm.
So you can share all these things in your platform. All of you are in the WhatsApp group. I think all of you are there.
Everybody is there. So, in fact, WhatsApp group becomes a great forum where you can share things.
There are all other things, not just
Uh,
your course material. This is only a standardized way to interact, but we should go beyond this.
okay.
Okay. So share the opportunity side also, where jobs are coming, where opportunity are coming, conference, seminar, discourse, and anything new happening in this migration area, diaspora area. You keep sharing, and that is how you get connected with a larger network globally also who are working in this area.
I have been a journalist and now I work for a union minister. Can you tell me how the subject? It depends on which union minister, which area. Pravina, as you go along, you will figure out the areas, or as I said, you can independently get in touch with me or Sada sir to discuss this out. Okay, that way it will be much easier a conversation which can happen. Pravina.
But also,
Okay.
also one thing I want to say, all these people think this as a training kind of platform. You also speak, you will also discuss, you also bring new things, share your idea. Because this 2 years program, you should not think that it is one way I'm just learning and writing exam. It is a platform to enhance your all kinds of skills, presentation skill, analytical skills, and networking skills. Everything you explore here, we are here to guide you.
Perfect. I think then in that case, let's call it a day. It's been a long day and people have been, on it. So at least I meet with you tomorrow at 5, between 5 and 7. We start the unit 1 of MDI 003, and you have a nice evening and a whole day of course. And I'll see you tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock. Bye, guys.
Okay, Abha, thank you so much.
Bye, guys.